It starts with a stare. Your cat is sitting on the kitchen counter, completely still, watching your coffee mug with the kind of focused, unblinking concentration that makes you slightly uncomfortable. Then one paw. Slow, deliberate, and your mug is on the floor. Your cat looks at you, you look at your cat, and you think, why? Most people assume it's chaos, random destruction, proof that cats are secretly evil and feel nothing. Some kind of power move just to remind you who's in charge. But behavioral science tells a completely different story. What your cat just did, that slow, deliberate push, wasn't random, it wasn't accidental, and it absolutely wasn't meaningless. It was calculated. And the reason why is one of the most fascinating things researchers have ever discovered about the feline mind. Let's start with the obvious theory. Your cat is bored. And look, that's partially true. But it's like saying Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel because he had some free time. Technically accurate, completely misses the point. Because boredom doesn't explain the stare. It doesn't explain why your cat approaches the object slowly, touches it first, then pushes it incrementally toward the edge. It doesn't explain why they watch it fall with what can only be described as scientific interest. That's not restlessness, that's a process. Here's what's actually happening inside your cat's brain. Your cat is a predator, not was, is. Every single domestic cat alive today carries the full neurological hardware of a solitary hunter, and that hardware doesn't switch off because there's a food bowl in the kitchen. In the wild, a cat's survival depends on one critical skill, testing whether something is alive, before committing to an attack. A mouse playing dead is dangerous. A snake that looks dead might not be. A hunter that lunges at every motionless object doesn't survive long. So cats evolved an extraordinarily precise behavior. They paw at objects to test for movement. Light touch first, then harder, then a full swipe. The object on your table, to your cat's ancient brain, it could be prey. And they are running a protocol that kept their ancestors alive for millions of years. Tap it. Does it move? Push it harder. Does it react? Send it over the edge. Does it scatter like a mouse? Does it bounce like a bird? Your cat isn't destroying your stuff. They're hunting it. Every single time. But here's where it gets genuinely strange. Because hunting instinct doesn't fully explain what researchers found next. In 2016, a team of researchers led by Saho Takagi at Kyoto University ran a series of experiments on 30 cats. They wanted to know something specific. Do cats understand gravity? They created containers that could produce sounds, rattling, without any visible cause. Sometimes the sound matched what should logically happen. Sometimes it didn't. A container rattled, but nothing fell out. Or something fell out that shouldn't have. The cats who experienced the impossible scenarios, the ones that violated the laws of physics, stared significantly longer at the container. They were more alert afterward, more likely to search for the hidden object. The researchers' conclusion was extraordinary. Cats appear to use a mental model of cause and effect to predict how physical objects should behave. They understand, at some level, that things fall. That sounds mean objects. That actions have consequences in the physical world. Which means when your cat nudges your pen to the edge of the desk and watches it fall, they already knew it was going to fall. They were testing their prediction, and the crash confirmed it. Your cat is not being destructive. Your cat is running physics experiments in your kitchen at 7 in the morning. Now here's the part of this behavior that almost nobody talks about, because it reframes everything. Davis feline researcher Mikel Delgado has studied this behavior extensively, and she found something that should make every cat owner stop and think. A lot of cats don't start out trying to get attention by knocking things over. It starts as instinct, the hunting test, the physics experiment, and then something happens. You react. You gasp. You rush over. You say the cat's name. You pick up the object while they watch. You make eye contact. And in that moment, your cat's brain registers something critical. That action controlled the human. They didn't plan it, but they remember it. And cats are extraordinarily fast learners when it comes to cause and effect, especially when the reward is attention from their person. So what started as a hunting instinct evolves into something else entirely. A communication strategy. A reliable method for getting the large, confusing creature they live with to look at them. The mug didn't fall by accident. It was a message. And the message was, I exist. Notice me. And this is where it stops being funny and starts being important. Because attention-seeking in cats doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when a need is going unmet. Indoor cats are chronically understimulated. They evolved to spend up to 12 hours a day hunting, stalking, chasing, catching, killing, and instead, they're in an apartment, waiting. For you. For something to happen. For any signal that the world is interesting. When those needs aren't met, cats don't collapse into passivity the way dogs sometimes do. They engineer solutions. They find what works, and they repeat it. The knocked-over glass isn't a tantrum. It's a cat that has figured out the most reliable way to make their environment respond to them. And if you've been reacting, even by scolding them, even by just glancing over, you have been reinforcing a behavior that will escalate. The next thing they push will be louder, more fragile, closer to something you care about. They didn't plan that either, but evolution shaped them to optimize. There's one last layer to this, and it's the one that should change how you respond forever. If your cat has been knocking things over for years and suddenly stops, pay attention. Not because you fixed it, but because sudden behavioral changes in cats are almost always medical. Cats mask illness and pain with extraordinary precision. In the wild, a cat that looks weak is a cat that gets eaten, so they hide it for weeks, sometimes months. One of the earliest signs researchers have identified for conditions like arthritis, hyperthyroidism, and feline cognitive dysfunction, the cat equivalent of dementia, which affects an estimated 50% of cats over 15 years old, is a change in previously established behavior patterns. A cat who stops jumping on counters might not have gotten bored with it, they might be in pain. A cat who stops their usual attention-seeking behaviors might be withdrawing for reasons they cannot tell you. Your cat doesn't have language. Their behavior is their language. And silence in a cat that used to be loud is worth listening to. So the next time you hear that crash, the unmistakable sound of something expensive hitting the floor, followed by the weight of a cat's gaze on the back of your neck, remember what's actually happening. A predator ran an ancient prey testing protocol. A physicist confirmed a gravitational hypothesis. And a social animal, living in an environment that doesn't always make sense to them, found the one reliable way to make their world respond. Your cat knocked over your stuff, on purpose, with full awareness of what would happen next. It's calculated. It was always calculated. And now you know what they were actually trying to say. If this changed how you see your cat, subscribe and tell me in the comments what's the most calculated thing your cat has ever destroyed. I genuinely want to know. And if you want to understand why your cat slow blinks at you and what they're communicating when they do, that video is next. And the neuroscience behind it is stranger than you'd expect.